YouTube, today we have Aporia in Duel Link's final lockable, and he's coming across as the embodiment of despair, but I think when we all see his level up wards and cards and skills, we're going to be the ones despairing. So let's go in to Aporia. I'm going to start with his cards first of all, because a lot of them are Tag Force cards brought over to the game, which is really cool to see, right? But then as you slowly read his skills, you realize that these don't really synergize at all. So first of all, we have a level 3 Grinnell Carrier, which if there's no Mechlord Emperor on the field, destroy it, which okay, fine. In the anime, these support cards, you'd summon your Emperor, and then you'd have these pieces that do different things, protection, and this one makes it so the first monster you control destroyed by battle in turn, it's not destroyed, which means it protects itself, or ideally, your big Mechlord boy. It's fine. Moving on to our next card, which is going over to Skeel Guard. Again, has a destruction effect, which then would trigger the effect of a Mechlord Emperor in your hand, which is really nice, but also, it can negate an attack on any monster, which is pretty good. One of the better support cards we have, right? Then we have Weisel Guard 3, an upgrade to the card we get via Primo. And so you summon this by tripping Weisel Guard, again, destruction effect, which would then trigger, fine. When an opponent's monster declares an attack that targets on monster you control, you can change the attack target to this card. And also, it has battle protection for the first battle. So, this is fine, right? 2k defense is pretty good. You can just summon it as well. You can just set it face down. You can do that. But also, it would then destroy itself when it flips face up, I think. So, I feel like they need some, some actual card effect protection rather than battle. Then we have our first spell card, Chaos Bloom. Apply the following effect based on the number of Chaos Bloom in your graveyard, so it works very similarly to Goblin Housekeeping, the trap card. If there's 0, so when you first play this, you can blow up a monster with 1,000 attack points, which ideally would be your Weisel Guards, or your Carriers, or whatever. It's going to be blowing up one of your Weisel pieces for your Mechlord Emperors. If there's 1, so your second activation, destroy 1 card in the Spell Card Zone, which I don't think is that good for your side, but for your opponent's side, blowing up Pendulum Zones, blowing up their back row, it's really good. Or 2 or more, you can then blow up any card on the field, your choice. That's great. Remove a big problem monster, or one of your monsters, summoning Mechlord Emperor. That works out just fine. Then moving on to the big stuff, our first copy of the Mechlord Emperor Grinnell, the only copy we're getting in Duel Links so far. So we're getting the Empress for free. We had to pay for Primos via the box as a super rare. So it's just a bit weird, right? So it must be special summoned when a face of monster control is destroyed by a card effect. So it's the same condition as Weisel. That's fine. This card gains attack and defense equal to half your life points. In the TCG, this would have been, although it was terrible, right, really good, because it would come out as, in a normal duel, around 4,000, right? If you have an 8,000 life point duel, then you'd expect a 2,000 attack, or 4,000 point max. This will come out at max 2,000, which isn't all that great, and once per turn you can yoink a synchro monster your opponent controls, which, okay, for Harpies, sure, they can bounce back to hand. We're not in a synchro meta, so this is, these cards are going to be not as useful as they probably could be, but it then does gain attack equal to the combined attack points of the monster equipped, so you can then make this pretty big, which is really nice. And then you can target one of those monsters and summon it to your field in defense mode, which, if you're able to steal a Cyber / Harpy Lady, means you can then get a free pop, a free bounce, sorry, when you activate your field spell to special summon a Mechlord from your hand. That could work out quite nicely, but of course you would then have to get as far as basically getting you stealing the card, which, if your opponent knew they were stealing something, they would then play spell card bounces back to your hand. So, it's going to be a rough one to try and get out. Then we have a second copy of Carrier, right? Yep. A second Guard, a second Guard 3, a second Chaos Bloom, and our first copy of Mechlord Emperor Skeel, which again is very similar, same summoning condition, and once per turn, you can, okay, yep, again, yoinking a monster, that's fine, but it comes out by default at 22/22, so already it's better than Grinnell, but not as good as Weisel. But you can send one monster you control that's equipped to this card to make this card attack directly this turn. Now, this isn't as, Weisel has by far the best effect, right? For being a spell negation card, it's really good. This, I can honestly see them at some point having a Mechlord Emperor farm deck. It might sound weird, but I feel like they're setting up for this to be somewhat viable as a free-to-play farm deck. I'll have to work out what they're trying to do with it, but this might be it, right? So, but then again, you have to, Yonk Synchro, which is not going to be easy to do in a farm deck. Then we have another copy of Carrier, so our third one, our third guard, our third Wiser Guard 3, our third copy of Chaos Bloom, and at level 40, our only copy of Aurora Draw. If you control Mechlord Emperor and there's no other cards in your hand, draw 2. This would be so good if there was no restriction on the other cards in your hand, but the idea I think is that you're going to be, I don't know, right? Because it's not like you're saying if you control Astromechanical, draw 2, because if you, Astromechanical, you are getting rid of your entire hand, pretty much, to summon him. So this would make sense. The main goal of Primo of Aporia was really to bring in these Tag Force cards into the game, and then just sprinkle in the 2 Mechlord Emperors we don't have, right? That was their main goal, and in that regard, they did alright. They could have done better, right? There's some other really powerful Mechlord cards in Tag Force that we haven't got in the TCG. There's a trap card, I think, that they could have given us. That would have been really cool to see. But now, let's go on to the skills. We'll talk about my review, my thoughts on them at the end. So, we have the first one, the Embodiment of Despair, Mechlord Astromechanical. At the beginning of the duel, add a Army of Weisel, Skill, Grenell, and Astromechanical to your deck. Honestly speaking here, if you're going to play Mechlords, you aren't doing it free to play. You just aren't, right? You're not going to not go into the box to play it. I feel like, because this is just going to be a really bad strategy, and it will, and making your deck 24 cards because of this isn't good. If they just put these at the bottom of the deck, then sure, that's, skills that put cards at the bottom of the deck are already quite good, because a lot of the times you're not going to draw into those in your first turn. You might not want to see all these turn 1. Can be used by revealing one Mechlord Astromechanical in your hand, return all these guys from the graveyard into your hand, and after using the skill, you can't play any other cards or effects till you summon your Astromechanical. This is fine for a recursion effect, right? The idea is that either you cycle through these, right, when it's drawn a battle, like this one, special summons, right, and you get them in the graveyard, and then you add them back to your hand, summon this boy, right? Or this is to be used after you already summoned one mechanical by discarding 3 of these, and then you draw into another one, and then you summon that. So, I don't know. Generic skill-wise, he has Beatdown, which, okay, already means it's pretty good. Drawson's high level, low level spell trap, that's pretty good ones. Heavy starter as well, is not a bad skill to have for if they ever bring back the Dark Dimensions event, which they won't do, but those raid events were too easy with that skill. But let's go on to his brand new, his exclusive skills. We have Fortissimo Combo. Return one Mechlord Emperor monster in your hand to its owner's deck and play one Fortissimo from outside your deck. If it's already on the field, return it back to your hand, and it's once per turn and twice per duel. This seems pretty good on the offset, right? The downside is that this has to return a Mechlord Emperor, not a Mechlord army. So you can only return your 1 copy of Skill, of Grenell, or your 3 copies of Weisel. So it's not that good. Like, getting the spell out is fine, right? Getting a special summon is pretty good, right? That's fine, because then you can go into some rank 4 shenanigans. We have the brand new one, the super rare in the box, that makes that really easy. So it seems alright, right? Like it really does depend on how good this deck is going to be. It's not going to be good, but on how easy it is to see a Mechlord Emperor in your hand, because then it's pretty good. If you can see Mechlord Emperor in your hand really consistently, then it's really good. But I don't think you can. Then we have Level Cannon / Lock On Laser. Can be used by choosing either one of the following effects when you control a Fortissimo, so you must go into the box for a super rare, I believe it is, to get this. And your opponent begins a duel, or your opponent has 3k more life points, so it's very early on the duel, you can use this. And it will only begin the duel if you begin the duel with a deck with no monsters other than Mechlords, which is really important, because I don't think it counts things like your Grenell Carrier, because it's not a Mechlord. So any of these skills that say you must have Mechlord cards means you must run only Mechlords. And that's really, really bad, because you might want to play some of the lower level carriers or the guards for protection for when your big boy comes out. Ah dear. So either, what effects do you choose? You either select a synchro monster your opponent controls and decrease the life points by its level times 100, or the amount of spell and trap cards on their field, which is going to be a maximum of 6 to 600 damage, or, a maximum of 10, so 1000 damage. It's just not worth it. It's not worth it to do this to get this off. I can see the idea here being that if they have a synchro monster right, you would then burn them for the damage when they're above 3k, take them down to below 3k, then you would summon Astromechanical, then you would yoink their synchro, and then you would do whatever, attack the game, right? Or maybe if you, maybe if you went for like, the Weisel, right? You went for Weisel, and you did the same thing, you stole the synchro, and then attacked for 25, right? And you got that game damage on board. It seems fun, but it's just not, the damage ain't worth it. It's not worth it. Mechlord Army Regeneration can be used once on your next turn after you summon Master Mechanical. I'm calling now from now on Master Mechanical from your hand. Return 2 army monsters with different names from your graveyard to your hand. That's actually not terrible. I know it doesn't make summoning Mechanical the first time any easier, right? But it makes seeing a follow-up play a lot nicer, because then if you do have your field spell, you then get 2 monsters on board. So, and you're already 2/3 of the way there towards another Mechanical. So that's not terrible. It's not terrible, it's not overly great, it's not terrible. Mechlord Astrogenesis, this sounds like it's going to be bonkers. Can be used if you special summon 3 or more Mechlord Emperor monsters, I assume over the entire duel. Banish a Mechlord Emperor Weisel, Skill, and Grenell from your graveyard to play a Mechanical from your deck or hand in attack mode. And you have to have a whole deck of Mechlord monsters, which means that, again, you can't run your carriers or your guards unless the wording is so bad and they forgot to say that these count as Mechlord cards, right? And they kind of treat them as that. But as of right now, we don't know. So this is just an alternate way to go into Mechanical, but you do need to have summoned all 3 of these big boys, and it's going to take a while for that to happen, especially because you're relying on card effect destruction for all of them. And if your opponent knows you're playing this, then they won't try and go for card effect destruction, which means you need to do it yourself, which would be useful if you had the Weisel carriers and the guards that can destroy themselves immediately on summon. It'd be useful for that, but you don't, because you can't play monsters other than Mechlords. That must be wrong, right? That must be wrong, because otherwise this conflicts so damn much. Mechlord Convert, sorry. Once per turn, one of the following effects can be used. Each effect can be used once per duel. Okay. Reveal Astromechanical in your hand, then return 2 Mechlords on your field to your hand, and send a Mechlord Deflection to your graveyard from outside your deck. So Deflection is going to be useful for the graveyard effect, right? For the protection. So it's basically saying that if I summon Mechanical and my opponent TTHs it, I have protection from TTH, which is what you kind of want, right? When summoning a big boss monster, you really want that. And it gets around the whole issue, right? With having to like wait in your hand to play this, right? You have to wait for a while and keep filling up your hand. You don't do that, right? If you want to summon some Mechlord boys to your field, you can do. You don't have to sit there and hold on to them for when the time comes. Or, the second effect, return 2 Mechlords from your graveyard to your deck, then search out Mechanical. Okay, what you'd really do, right, is you would activate the effect of the second one, right, the search Mechanical, then Mechanical on the next turn, you would then return the Mechlord Emperors back to your hand, and then you would do all that kind of thing. So that's fine. But this one also has the restriction of 12 or more monsters and no monster other than Mechlords. So again, you can't... That's so many as well. 12 is so many. I think those other ones are right. Those other ones didn't have the restriction on the amount of cards, right? If we go to Mechlord Army Regeneration, right? Does that... No, I'm reading the same one again. Yeah. Like, there's no restriction on the number of cards you can have. So this one does... yeah, again, no restriction on that one. So this one does have you... you have to play 12 or more Mechlord monsters, which is going to be what? It's just weird. It's just weird that you can't play the little boys, the really small support pieces in any of these skills. Then we have a Soldier to Lord. Can be used if you control only one monster. Send one face-up Mechlord army you control to play one Mechlord Emperor, which is basically the same one, only once and once per duel, and you must have no other monsters than Mechlords. This skill makes even less sense than the others, because this one focuses on the Emperors, right? On getting these boys out. And if you can't protect them with the pieces, because you can't play monsters other than Mechlords, then what is the point? And the bigger thing here is that this skill, I've seen on Duel Links meta already, that people have been trying to play this skill, and this doesn't do, this doesn't summon, you play Weisel, right, and you don't then upgrade to Weisel from outside your deck, or you don't upgrade to Weisel from the deck. You upgrade to Weisel from the hand. It's skipping the destruction effect. That's all this is doing. Assuming that that's how it works and people aren't, messing things up, that's how it's working. Oh, Konami. Like, you have some interesting skills here, right? You have the basis for them, but the execution of them just doesn't feel, it's just terrible, right? Especially when these won't be meta. These cards won't be meta because they're all very reliant on facing synchros, and apart from Weisel, right, like Weisel is the one that you can just has a negate for spell cards, right? He's the best one, but these ones rely on synchros to actually do anything. So I'm just a bit disappointed, even though we kind of already knew we were going to get that anyway in Secret Destroyer. Aporia has it, Prima has it, okay, whatever. So oh dear. Overall, Aporia is just a bit of a mess, right? It feels like you're conflicting two different ideas for the deck. You're wanting to give us these Tag Force cards, but we can't play them because all the skills literally cannot play them. And then you're giving us some really cool skills that sound interesting, that can make Mechlords do something, right? Do something and have a bit more consistency in different ways, but then you hinder them by having them be stupid, like having to summon out from the hand. Which you would just wait for a destruction, right? You'd wait for a card effect pop or something. Maybe someone finds a way to make a Mechlords really good, but given their already heavy synchro reliance right now, they aren't going to do anything, right? At best, Aporia is a character that you level up all these gems, you go and take him into the brand new Raid Duel event, you click Auto Duel, you get your gems, you have a good time, and then you save them for the brand new mini box that's coming out tomorrow, or the main box end of the month, or anniversary in January. Just a bit disappointing, isn't it? It's just a bit disappointing, right? But yeah, that is my thoughts on Aporia. Thanks for watching, I'll see you all in the next Duel Links video. See you then.